Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Minister for the North Coast's contribution and indeed for the Government's commitment to recognition of the South Sea Islanders. I'd also like to acknowledge the member for Fairfield's contribution and for pointing out that he, like so many others, were not aware of this part of our history, and it is something that is often glossed over, but it is important that today we are recognising this role in Australia's history. I'd also like to acknowledge the contribution of the member for Campbelltown and indeed the member for Balmain, and the way that he has acknowledged the South Sea Islander community for not giving up in the fight for recognition, a fight that I'm here with you for the long term. And of course also the contribution for the member for Terrigal.
The Minister for Energy.
And the Minister for Energy. Thank you. And especially the member for Canterbury, for the importance in highlighting how important identity and the story is to the South Sea Islanders, as it is to many other parts of the Australian community who have not shared a great history in this place. And of course, who comes to mind as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And to Danny Togo, Shireen Malamu and Lola Forrester for being here today to partake in this, and for the work that you have done with the other members of this place in showing them the importance of this motion. 150 years ago, Australia began bringing Pacific Islanders to this country to work on cane fields in Queensland, a program that lasted over 40 years. Islanders were kidnapped, coerced, and subject to contracts that they could not have understood, and which were used to keep Islanders in servitude. Arriving here, their lack of immunity to common diseases meant many died, resulting in massive mortality rates exceptionally higher than their European counterparts. Governments were well aware of the mortality rates, and I share the belief that they were neglectful in continuing the program for over 40 years, given so many people in the prime of their life had died as a result of this program. At the time, Queensland law required that wages of deceased Islanders were returned to their family, but only 15% were used to purchase goods for relatives. Islanders were not treated well by employers. The White Australia policy, a shameful time in Australia's history, led to mass deportations. That led to mass deportations, had devastating impacts, and legitimised already widespread racism and prejudice against them. The plight of the Pacific Islanders on indentured contracts is not well known in the community. It is a shameful part of our history that needs to be publicly acknowledged with government action to reduce disadvantage among descendants. And I echo the member for Canterbury's calls for this to be included in a school curriculum. On virtually all gauges, Australian South Sea Islanders remain disadvantaged: health, income, housing and education. But this disadvantage can be turned around with specifically targeted programs and services. Mr. Speaker, could I ask for a short extension?
The question is, the extension be allowed? Was it 2 minutes?
28 seconds. Use your time.
You seek leave to extend? The question is, the extension be granted? An extension is granted. Member for Sydney.
In 1995, then Premier Carr's memorandum of understanding called for adequate services to target South Sea Islanders, but no specific programs have been developed. We also need to increase historical and cultural awareness in the wider community and collect data to establish a community profile. And I hope the Minister will go beyond support for the motion to work with the national representative body of Australian South Sea Islanders to do this. There is no question that Australia profited from the program, and it is only fair that our economic and social wealth is also experienced by Australian South Sea Islanders. It is also beneficial to our current relationship with Pacific Islanders, to which New South Wales exports $380 million worth of merchandise every year, and from where there are 277 students enrolled in New South Wales. I welcome the House's support of the motion and its formal acknowledgement of past atrocities. The 150th anniversary of the program provides the opportunity to help Australian South Sea Islanders build community esteem and a positive future. I thank the national representative body of the Australian South Sea Islanders for working with me and my staff on this motion. And I commend the motion to the House.
Thank the member for Sydney. The question is, the motion now be agreed to. All that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.